I think we should be wary. I think one of the biggest issues that I have with the reactions to this withdrawal so far is this belief, this idea that Russia is the party that wins, or Iran or Turkey. These three parties do not trust each other. Russia is ready to abandon Tehran in a heartbeat if it believes that it can find warmer relations with the US. And the Iranians, they know this as well. We've seen tensions between Iran and Russia over Iran's disappointment at the way Russia is conducting itself with regards to taking advantage of these oil sanctions that have been imposed on Iran. For Turkey, they believe they're in an existential threat. I think one of the reasons why this is so very interesting, what's happening in Syria, is that last week we had Çavuşoğlu, the Turkish foreign minister, saying we are ready to work with Assad if he wins free and fair elections. Then Omar al-Bashir takes a letter from the Arab states suggesting to Bashar al-Assad, we are ready to reconcile with you. Then Erdogan speaks to Trump and they have some sort of conversation, and suddenly the Turkish deal to buy Patriot missiles from the US is back on the table, and the deal to buy S-400s from Russia is now in doubt. Moreover, we have Erdogan's announcement that he's going to go into northern Syria to fight the Kurds. If you're Donald Trump and you're mulling over this, you're thinking, okay, look, I may be withdrawing, but I know Turkey doesn't trust Russia. I know Turkey doesn't trust Iran. I know that if Turkey has to choose, it will choose me. So if Turkey is going into northern Syria, that's technically a fighting force that not my fighting force, but it's a fighting force that is allied with me. Moreover, when we talk about Russian influence in Syria and whether it increases, let's remember Syria needs money to rebuild. Russia doesn't have the money. Iran doesn't have the money. Europe doesn't have the money. The only countries that viably have some of the money are the Gulf countries. These are US allies. If the US doesn't want these countries to invest in Syria, they won't. But if the US can use this soft power, this investment of Gulf money in Syria, US still has cards it can play to ensure it has significant influence over Syria. I think the Russians, far from being happy, I think the Russians are sitting there thinking, okay, the US have withdrawn militarily, but now we have a new battle. We have all of this influence that we fought hard for, but how do we maintain it? We can't give Assad the reconstruction he wants. We can't necessarily give him the political support that he wants, because Turkey is trying to force opposition members onto this constitutional council to do these certain elections. And moreover, now that you have a Turkish military presence in northern Syria fighting the Kurdish forces in order to prevent the separatist Kurdish movement, you see now that Turkey is also a major player now in Syria. Now, what happens if US plays on these divisions between Russia, Turkey and Iran, which is only a marriage of convenience and not really an ideological bloc? The reality of the matter is this: when you take a holistic approach, when you look at all of the dynamics in Syria today, the withdrawal doesn't really affect US influence. US has many cards that it can play. So even if people are complaining today and saying it's a disaster, the reality is, I think the Russians will be concerned, I think the Iranians will be concerned, and I think the only happy party would be Erdogan, who will be laughing all the way back to the presidential palace.
All right, Sami Hamdi, appreciate your perspective. Thanks very much for being with us.